Hey guys, Sandy Butchers here for the Reading Writers podcast. I promised to do a live Q&A today, so here I am. And I have gathered a bunch of questions through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on the website, pretty much everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those questions and I'm just going to see how far I can get answering them without spending like the next 2.5 hours boring you to death with my monologue on your questions. So here we go. The first question was, looking at the theme for next episode, what would you say to people who just want to write but feel like they have an obstacle course in front of them? Now this is actually a very good question because I know that a lot of writers have difficulties getting started, like they feel that there is an entire obstacle course in front of them when they want to just write. Now, there isn't really much you can do about it except for actually getting started. And what I would really like to press to your heart really is that getting started is the most difficult part of actually writing a story, writing a book. Take some small steps. I mean, every obstacle is one, but you can get past every obstacle if you take them one at a time. You cannot go from start to finish by jumping over the entire obstacle course. You're going to have to face them one by one. And if that very first obstacle is getting started, focus on that one. Focus on getting started. It's basically the only sound advice there is for this one. Get started. Sit down. Take a moment. Take good care of yourself. Have a cup of tea. Have a cup of coffee. Anything really. But get in the mood. Make sure that you sit down straight. You have your stuff in front of you. And that you are going to get started. I have said get started like a couple of times now, haven't I? Anyway, that's pretty much what I have in the first one. So the next question was, which is a worse distraction for you, Twitter or Instagram? I'm going to be honest with you, Twitter is my nemesis. I really love Twitter and I love the writing community on Twitter. But it is taking a lot of time. I think I already said it in one of the other short Q&As that I had, that Twitter takes up about 60 to 70% of our time, at least for the Reading writers. So you can imagine that while running Reading Writers along with Lydia Stevens, I am also trying to keep focus on my own personal Twitter account. So if that is 60% for Reading, and another 60% for my Sandy Butchers account, that is like 120% of my time. So how am I going to do that? The short answer is I allow myself to be distracted. So I set specific times and I set specific moments or goals that are connected to the reward of being allowed to be on Twitter. And that is also, that's going to be one of the tips in our next week's episode actually. Allow yourself the time to be distracted, because if you work with rewards rather than punishments, you often get more work done. So for example, I could say, I cannot be on Twitter because I haven't written my 3,000 words for today. And I'm going to be mad at myself because I haven't done that. What I could also do is say, alright, I have written maybe not 3,000 words, but 2,000 words, which means that I cannot spend an entire half hour on Twitter. Instead, I can do 15 minutes. So reward yourself. And that way the distraction actually becomes a reward and it will really help you manage with that. So long story short, my worst distraction is definitely Twitter. But for me, at this point, it's kind of manageable. All right. Let's see what the next question is. Oh, I like this one. How do you manage time between writing and visual arts, and which comes first? That is a difficult question. It's two questions, but they are definitely connected. Okay, so how do I do this? How do I manage time between writing and visual art? Usually I have about 1 month, 1.5 months, and I'm assuming this is about the Singularity and Grimoire anthologies. There is a new book every month, and I'm usually a bit ahead of schedule because I'm not going to write today what I have to publish tomorrow. There is about 1.5 months in between them. So what I do is I set up deadlines for when the writing needs to be done, or at least the drafting needs to be done. And then I set deadlines on when the illustrations need to be done. And usually I write the stories first and then the illustrations come later. So I write, for example, story or entry 1, 2, and 3, and then I have an idea on what I want to draw for story 1. And actually, this really goes into chronological order. So my first illustration is kind of the illustration for story number 1, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, managing that, it's really about setting deadlines. It's really about having the discipline to say, look, today I need to write this draft, and I'm not going to stop until I have it done. And yes, that sometimes means that I sit down in front of my computer at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave it at 8 o'clock in the evening, and maybe I'll have written like 2,000 words and it's not even done, but I won't sleep until it's done. Because once you start pushing deadlines forward, it's a slippery road. I mean, once you start doing that, it's so easy to say the next time, all right, you know what, I did that last time, I'm going to push this one ahead a little bit as well. And we don't want to do that. So if I set a deadline for myself, today's story 1, I'm going to have story 1 done. And that means that the same goes for the illustrations. If today is illustration number 4, it's going to be done. And in fact, I have illustration number 4 on my calendar for today. So after doing this whole Q&A, there is going to be some drawing. So yeah, I for today I have the outline for drawing number 4. Yeah, well then, basically. All right, let's move on to the next question. What does a normal working day look like for you? My working days are actually kind of boring. I get up somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. I do some breakfast, go for a walk with the dog, which usually takes me somewhere between half an hour and a full hour. So it is 9 o'clock by the time I get started. And depending on whether I have a deadline on stories or illustrations, or actually my normal day job, the writing is either done in between, or if I have a day off from my regular job, the writing can be spread out across the entire day. It really depends on my agenda, how that day is actually filled in. But let's say I have a day off and I can spend the whole day writing. That's pretty much what I do. I have lunch, obviously, because I need to eat and I need to drink, and I will have my moments where I just sit down and have my cup of tea. It's not like I stare at a computer screen for 12 hours a day. I do try to take breaks because, like I said before in one of those 5 tips videos, taking a break is sometimes the fresh air you need to continue. You need to step away every now and then, every couple of hours, just, step away, do something else, and make sure to get some fresh air. I don't care if it's raining, I don't care if there's a storm or anything. Go outside for a moment and just refresh your brain. It's really important. So I do that throughout the day. I write, I go out, I write, I go out, I draw, I go out. And that's pretty much how it works until I think maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. And then usually my husband comes home and we have dinner and we walk the dog again and we do some sports. And by the time it's 9 or 10 p.m., I usually just stop what I'm doing and relax for another hour before I go to bed. So, I do a lot in a day, or at least I tend to think that I do a lot in a day, but it's manageable. And I kind of like the working flow. I like the rhythm in there. So yeah, it's what it's been like for a couple of years by now. Let's go to the next. Do I have any tips for people who suffer from imposter syndrome? Oh, that is a very painfully familiar question, really. Imposter syndrome is something we all suffer from every now and then. Every writer has imposter syndrome at one point or more points in their lives. Do I have any tips for that? Yes, you are good enough. I would say fake it till you make it, but I know that even that can be really difficult at times. We are so often confronted with rejection, with trolls writing bad reviews, or just in general people who think they're funny by saying your work sucks. Not even to mention if you query agents and you get hundreds of rejections before there's this one maybe, or this one partial, or maybe a one full, which is then even rejected. There are so many ways in which writers get to hear from other people that their work isn't good enough. But there's one very important thing that you really have to keep in mind there. It might be about your work. It might be someone's taste, or it might be someone saying it's not good enough. It is never about you. It is your work that is at that point not sufficient to the person that has been reading it. Never you. Your work can be improved. You are good as you are. You are who you are. And you write. And you are a writer. But you are so much more than your work. And I think that is the line that we need to keep in mind when we start losing ourselves in imposter syndrome. We are not good enough is not the way we should think about ourselves. We are good enough, but there is room for improvement in what I do, and I am not what I do. So I kind of hope this helps, because I know it is always super easy to say these things, to say people, look, it's your work, it's not you. And I know the switch is very hard, to make in your head, but really, this is the only tip that I can give you. Try to separate your work from yourself. And then you will see that, yes, your work might have room for improvement, but you are good as you are, right? I hope that helps. I have one more question that I want to answer. Let's see where to go. I am going through a horrible writer's block right now. Do you have any tips to help me out? Writer's block. That is an entire subject of its own. And if I remember correctly, we have an entire episode for the Reading Writers podcast on writer's block. And I think we are going to mention it on this week's episode as well. To me, writer's block... oh, I'm going to be hated for this. Writer's block is an illusion. Writer's block is something in your head. It's something, it's a switch you can just flip it. The only thing that's going to help you get out of the writer's block is writing. Sit down, put those fingers on the keys, and write. And it's going to be shit, and it's going to be terrible, and it's not going to be finished, and it's not going to be what you have in mind. But you are writing. I don't remember the full quote, and I don't even remember who said it. But someone once said, you can always edit a bad page. You cannot edit an empty page. So make sure stuff happens on that page. Writer's block is triggered by fear of getting started. This actually goes back to this very first question. The obstacle course that we mentioned. We sit at the start of a obstacle course. We look and we go, oh, there's so many obstacles. I can't do this. And that turns into fear. Fear to get to the finish, fear to get to the next obstacle and the next and the next. And you know there's going to be such hard work, and it collapses on us. That is what writer's block is. Some people also say that it's lack of creative juices going around. It's lack of inspiration. That's all fine. But sometimes you need to inspire yourself. And one way to learn how to do things is also by knowing how not to do things. So if you write and you write a pace that is utter shit, it's fine, because at least you know how you're not going to do that. At least you know what you don't want, which will then get you closer to knowing what you do want. So really the only tip I have to conquer writer's block is sit down and write. It's really all there is to it. All right. I've been talking for quite a while, actually, like 30 minutes already. So let's just let's keep it the way it is. Thank you so much for the questions, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I gave you some useful information, and I hope you can finally get started if you're stuck on the writer's block, or if you feel like you're stuck on an obstacle course. If you have any more questions, please don't be afraid to give us a shout out on Twitter. You can either tag me directly at Sandy Butchers, or if you want to have Lydia Stevens' opinion and expertism as well. Expertism, wow, that was so Dutch. Expertise. You can tag her, or you can tag at Reading Writers. We will always be happy to help you along. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe, and don't forget to hit that like and bell button. And I will definitely be seeing you around for the next episode, which we'll record on this Friday, which means it's going to launch on this coming Saturday. And the theme is, I Just Want to Write. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you around. Bye.